This podcast contains sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including public corruption, child abuse, sex abuse, police misconduct, racial discrimination, sex discrimination, pedophilia, sexual violence, and physical violence. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is affected by these issues, please consider seeking support from a trusted professional. Okay, hi, my name is Corellin Stevens, and this is my first podcast, and I'm here with Heidi Kordosky. And Heidi was the victim of abuse when she was 3.5 years old in the Dalles. And so, Heidi, I'm just going to let you tell your story, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, my name's Heidi Marie Kordosky. I was born in 1979, and I'm really excited to get to share this story because it's really emotional for me, and I'm hoping to be able to help other people who are in similar situations be able to come out and not feel so crazy when they talk about stuff that's out of the mainstream norm with government and what they do to people sometimes whenever politicians are involved in something because their family member decides to go out and molest little kids or rape little kids, and they don't want their reputation to be tarnished.
So Heidi's from a political family, so just so people can know that.
My great grandma was Lucille Wires of Hood River, Oregon, which is a very politically connected last name. It's a 3-generation attorney firm they have in Hood River there, and my uncle, I won't say his first name, but he was a senator in Oregon in the early 80s. His last name's Wires. I'm sure you can figure that part out. Wires is spelled W-Y-E-R-S. So, and I'm Heidi Kordosky. My mom was adopted by the Wires family, so that's how I'm in the family. And I was, so this can happen even if you have a politically connected family, I guess, because that's what happened to me. My situation happened in the Dalles in 1982, October 13th of 1982, to be exact, is when it was reported.
It wasn't October 12th.
Well, October 12th.
Was when you got the paperwork. Yeah, that's
well,
right.
no, October 12th is whenever I was raped. It was about 12:30 at night, so it got reported 45 minutes later when my parents. It was reported on the 13th, but it all took place late at night. So I was raped by. I'll back up to the beginning of that day when this happened, and I was 3.5, so I have no memory of it, but I do have the police reports and my mom's version, which she was courageous enough to tell me one time, because she's scared for her life if this gets pushed to this day, and it's 2024. Me, I'm just too stupid to be scared, I guess. Or, my whole life is gone. My whole life has been I don't have anything to lose. So on October 12th, 1982, my young parents, my mom was 17 years old and my dad was 21, had some friends that lived in the Dalles that came over, and my parents were kind of risque, I guess. They were young swingers, and so that's why they decided to have us babysat that night. And I was living on my great-grandma's property, Lucille Wires, in Hood River, and so usually they would just leave me with her, but their friends had little kids that were my age, and I was never around little kids, so they want me to have some social time, and that was the deciding factor in why I was babysat rather than left with my great-grandma. So the 4 parents decided to go back to the Dalles and have us babysat, because then we could play all night. And we stayed there at Bill Kelly, which is the dad of the other 2 victims in this crime. So the parents all left, and they said they went to Portland to go roller skating. They probably went to a hotel to do whatever they were going to do. But that's neither here nor there. They had found, the dad of the other two victims had found a nice girl on the side of the road to babysit us that he had only met one other time, and he said that she looked nice, so our young parents irresponsibly left us with a strange girl who was 17 years old. And while they were gone, I'm not really sure how or what happened, but when my parents got back, they came back to a baby that was crying. I had blood from head to toe, and it was chaotic. The police reports say that the babysitter blamed me. Oh, and there was the baby's lips were chewed on like hamburger. My mom said that's her version of what it looked like, and there was bite marks all over the baby's body. And initially, the babysitter blamed me. Oh, it must have been Heidi, which I internalized that, I'm sure, but we won't get into all the mental effects it's had on me. But so here's a baby with blood from head to toe and chew marks from a human mouth all over her body. And
do you know the name of the babysitter?
Yeah, it was a Conyers, Lori Conyers, Conyers was the last name. And she totally said she doesn't know what happened. She only slept for a half an hour. That's why I say the time it happened was between 11:30 and 12 at night, because she said she only slept for a half an hour, and she was with us the whole time. So the other two parents took this was an 8-month-old baby that was chewed on, by the way. Her parents took her to the hospital, and myself and the other 2-year-old girl were left with my parents to watch while they were at the hospital getting her examined. And then, of course, the hospital called the police, and the police called, and there was a big investigation there. And then the police came back after they were done examining the baby. The police came back with the other two parents to secure the crime scene. And while they were gone at the hospital, myself and the other 2-year-old had been talking. And they were asking us questions, what happened, who hurt the baby. And the other 2-year-old said to me that she had seen the guy put his pee-pee in me. That's what the other 2-year-old, we were talking, and my parents heard this. And so then they were like, oh, well, there's been sexual abuse. And they couldn't get to the hospital because the only car was already in use taking the baby to the hospital. So when the cops came back, that was reported, and myself and the other 2-year-old were taken to the emergency room to have rape kits done.
And I think that your case is so interesting because, of course, this is back in 1982, and the police and DHS are being called. So,
yeah.
In our case, that didn't happen in 2007, which is just preposterous. But
yeah, that was I think it was 17 years after that happened to me.
Something like that.
Is 2007. I mean, something like that, pretty close.
Right, it's crazy, yeah. So,
this was procedural in 1982.
Right. So, but other things go wrong in your case, so let me keep, you can keep talking.
So in 1982, this was all reported to the hospital for rape kits, and they mandatory reported, because that's what they do, to the police, and they mandatory reported to child services. And so there was 3 different reports on this done that night, because that's the law. Mm-hmm. And this was 17 years prior to 2007 when this horrible event happened to Kadira, which I'll go into why that's so odd later. Because this happened to me, and later on in the report, it's identified that the investigating officer is a direct relation to the prime suspect that did this to us that night in 82, which is really directly correlated with Kadira's case, where the suspect was directly related to a high-ranking official in Portland.
Right.
Right. So that's a pretty
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's some protocol there. So.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So this has got something to do with politically connected people and their families getting in trouble and how it's handled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a problem in Oregon because
Right.
this happened to me in the Dalles, Oregon, and what happened to Kadira was in Portland, Oregon.
Right.
And there's a wide space of time in between the happenings.
Right.
So this must be a cue card, read off the cue card thing they deal with when something like that happens to a politically connected person.
Right, exactly.
Because it'll ruin the reputation of the politician or high-ranking, whoever they are, in the future if they have family members that are out sadistically raping kids and hurting them.
So they just cover it up.
They say it doesn't happen.
Right.
Yeah, they cover it up completely. Even if you have the police, the hospital, and DHS involved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it,
So I want you to keep going because it's like you have quite a story
Yeah.
in terms of, Heidi has really quite a story in terms of how she, comes to start remembering all of this and how she finds out that any of this even happened to her. So I want you to keep going.
Yeah. Well, so let me go back to that night. This is when it's being reported initially. They were at the hospital and they find what the doctor, who is an experienced doctor who's gone to school, says is semen. It glows correctly, and he knows what he's doing, I would think. When they're doing a rape kit, the emergency room doctor has done it before. So they take all this forensic evidence and they take an itemized list and send it in with the cops to go to the forensic lab. And so it was all reported. Two little girls were raped, and one was, the 8-month-old baby was chewed on, and that's the case from there on out until just a month and a half later when they determined that none of this ever happened somehow. I didn't, my mom and dad never really talked about this. It was just kind of, let me fast forward because that's all I had until just 6 months ago whenever I finally was afforded the validation of what happened to me.
Right. Heidi's records were withheld from her until 6 months ago. So she just actually got all of her documents. She was told for many years that no documents even existed or they'd been destroyed. She was just told for a long time that this basically never happened to her, even though she was starting to have memories, and her mom had kept an old police report that she found, much later on. So I'll let you talk, though, Heidi.
Yeah, so fast forward, when I was 15 years old, I was going through my mom's file cabinet, and I found the initial police report. It was just a one-page thing that had all these details on it that were, I didn't know what to make of it. So I called my mother, and the one and only time she ever explained anything to me, she told me the story, her version of remembering what had happened. I was 15 then, so it happened when I was 3.5. So that was 12 years prior to it had happened, and I found these reports. And let me back up a little bit. Between the time that I was raped and the time that I found those reports, I had a plethora of symptoms. I was seeping PTSD. I was punished for these things because my parents didn't know. My mom didn't understand the signs of a child in distress because of PTSD. She knew this happened. She knew that it had been covered up, but she was quiet about it because she was scared for her life. She's told me that on numerous occasions, and I'll go into that and the effects of that in just a little bit. But I from that night on, I would wake up having these nightmares where I'd be screaming, reenacting what happened. My mom explained to me, screaming, and she would have to slap my face to get me to wake up. I wet the bed every single night. I was a child victimizer. And I'm just telling you this because it's something I'm not proud of, but it was untreated. It was never addressed. And it could have been addressed had the police have pursued it in a normal due process way And I would have
trying to make it go away.
Yeah. Instead, I molested my little sister. I molested a girl at school, and she didn't feel comfortable. I was not trying to go out and be a predator, but I was a predator child. I did this to a lot of children. I didn't know better, and I was really self-conscious about that for a number of years. After I grew up, I didn't have kids. Because I was scared of what my mom might say or what might it was just a really.
And for the kids that you molested, they probably didn't get any help either.
No, they never got help either.
No one's ever getting any help.
Nobody's ever getting any help, and here I am. I'm this victimizer until I was old enough to know better. I didn't do that after I was old enough to know better, but I mean, I'm talking young ages.
What age did you stop?
I stopped at 10 because I got caught again. But at that point, 10 years old. But at that point, I didn't really stop because I had certain people that I would play with that we would just play normal childhood games. But it was kind of excessive. I don't know what happened to them when they were little. They were just kind of in the.
So you just were overly sexualized.
Oh, I was very
getting
sexualized.
And then kind of other kids, you were kind of exhibiting that behavior, and then they were getting involved as well, but parents weren't getting involved.
Right. It was sneaky at that point, but I wasn't victimizing them.
Did you get no treatment after the rape?
I got no treatment ever. Until 6 months ago, finally. I mean, I had gone to some therapy for other things, but I had never addressed this. And once I started really putting two and two together, that I was affected by this, and that's what these symptoms were that I was trying to hide for so long because I was ashamed of these things.
Because you didn't even know what had happened to you.
Right, I didn't know what had happened to me, and I didn't know that was a product of that having happened.
So when you found out that you had been raped, just I want the audience to hear about that day and how that changed you and changed your relationship with your mom and your parents and what happened from that point forward.
Well, first of all, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the golden number, other than therapists or people that really know, but the golden number is 27 years old. So before 27, you're experiencing all these symptoms, but you're not mentally mature enough to put the symptoms together with childhood trauma.
And these are children that have been sexually abused?
Sexually or childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm. It's like serious childhood trauma.
Yeah, serious childhood trauma. You don't have the mental maturity to understand that affected you and that's what you're battling until you're 27. And a lot of people unravel at that point, especially the lack of family support they get, because everybody thinks that it didn't affect them, but they're brewing inside and they're dealing with all these.
Or it's possibly don't even remember or know about it.
Right,
Because in your case, you didn't know. Know until you were 15.
Right, correct? I didn't know.
Yeah. So.
And when I was 15 and I found out about it, I would actually kind of, this happened to me, I would.
So that's what I want to get back to. Let's center back to when you were going through that file cabinet and you find the police report and confronting your mom, because I think that's
my mom broke down on the phone whenever I called her, and she was like, it was awful. She was like, she said it was covered up. She didn't emphasize who. Well, she said it was the babysitter's dad was a high-ranking government official, and so they never did anything about it. And she just said to leave it alone. She tried, and she got my great uncle that had a law firm in Hood River involved, and he looked at it and he went back to my mom with the case file, put it down on the seat, and said, I can't do anything about this, Beth. It's bigger than you know.
Okay, I think we're going to take a little break and we'll come right back. Okay, so we're back with Heidi Kordosky, and you've opened up this file cabinet, you're reading these files, and just tell me what you're thinking.
I was reading through this file, and I was like seeing all these horrible things, and then I see my name as the victim, and I was like, what is this about? it blew me away, and I was like, I couldn't make sense of what it was. I called my mom, and she told me this horrible story, and then I was like, well, what do you mean nothing ever happened? I guess that went through my head, but other than that, I was like, well, I'm okay. It didn't affect me. I don't remember it, and then I just remember from 15 to 27 was a really rough road of me coming to terms with how much this really did affect me, and the stuff I was suffering in social settings was absolutely devastating to me and to my life and to my ability to be around people and not and have a safe, loving friendships and relationships. I was not getting that at all, because it was me, and I blamed everybody around me for a long time, and I still have that difficulty to this day. But and it's really hard for me to be around people, and before it was even worse, because I was just coming to terms with the fact that this is something that's in me. This is something that was created before I could remember, and it really affected me, and I got really mad, and I knew that I needed some help, and I started looking into the kind of help I was going to need, and it was unattainable. I couldn't afford it. I mean, I couldn't afford the kind of help that actually helps. I mean, I had gone to counseling, so
what happened to that original police report, though, that you found in the cabinet? Because
I was 15 years old. I lost it.
Yeah.
I lost it, but
and then when you were trying to seek copies of the report.
Yeah, when I was 27, I started to get curious. I was like, well, I need to get some help, and I found victims assistance online as something that was an avenue for victims in Oregon, that there was no other way to get compensation, to get counseling. I wasn't trying to get money to go do anything. I was trying to get counseling. And so I started to try to get these records, and it was impossible for me to do it. I finally applied for victims' compensation without the records and described to them the struggle I was having, and then they took it upon themselves to try to get these records because they really wanted to help me.
So what was happening between 15 and 27 that led you to seek help? Because, I mean, I know that you've talked to me about, like, starting to remember things and what was your life, your parents left you in a parking lot.
Yeah, my parents were very irresponsible people as parents. They left me in a parking lot when I was 15. The reason I had my mom's file cabinet was because they had ran to Texas on a crime spree, and I secured their storage unit before it got auctioned off, and so I had their possessions, all the stuff from our house that was packed up and put in the storage unit. I had. And I was looking for something unrelated. I don't remember what it was. Probably some school thing, or who knows. And I came across this file while I was being snoopy in my mom's file cabinet. And so I was going through some significant life challenges at that point. But
like, how were you living?
I was living I was living in a house with a boyfriend who was 21. He was abusive. Mentally, he was 21. He was going schizophrenic, and I was with him, and so I didn't understand that. But he's schizophrenic now. So I didn't understand what was going on there, but I was going through this file cabinet, living in this house with this person. My parents were gone, and I attached myself to this guy because I had nobody else, and I thought I was in love, and so I started on this mission, kind of from
27.
20. Well, yeah, 20. About 27. 27 was like the the tipping point. Because I had dysfunctional relationships all the way through.
And you're 40?
I'm 45 now.
45 now.
Yeah. I had dysfunctional relationships all the way through in some ways that I might have had dysfunctional boyfriends, but this was a pattern that was happening with every guy. And I wasn't with a lot of guys. It was probably 5 relationships, but it was all the same. And it was trust issues on my end. I could not trust, and I could not, but there was more. I was just all, and I still am all messed up, and I still sabotage my relationships in the same ways. But back then I didn't know it was me, so I would blame them. Now I try to explain to everybody I'm around my situation so that they don't take to heart some of my, because I'm fucked up. And I feel really like when there's a million fish out there that aren't all messed up.
Right.
I'm almost like a charity case for anybody to be around.
So, which I would greatly disagree with because I very much love Heidi. But, so, when you started searching for your records, what you found in Oregon is you just could not get to your records, and you were basically being told the records did not exist. But you knew they existed because you had seen this police report at one point, and you had talked to your mom. Yeah. So it was
perplexing me.
Right.
So at this point, it's not even about I was like, after I got denied for victims assistance after a 2.5-year grueling application process and them trying to get the records to help me get this, which they have total access. I may not, but they do.
So, and you were told by them that the case did not exist.
Well, yeah, I was told. Yeah, I was told by them. I would read it right now. I'll save that for a later date. But I have emails between me and them saying, we have exhausted our resources looking, or any avenue we have.
Right, and I've actually seen some of this documentation where they talk about the records were either possibly destroyed or they never existed. So, Heidi, you were basically being told, this never happened to you.
Yeah, and that mental effect was devastating. That was just like, you got chewed on babies, you got 2 raped girls, a chewed on baby, and they can't find the records.
And at this point, you are having some memories.
Well, I was having,
or you were having some kind of something because you knew something happened and you were pursuing it more. So it's like in your consciousness.
I came up with this whole, and it took time. They talk about children coming up with false memories that seem real, and I did that. I thought what I was remembering was real, and the police reports clearly show that everything that I really thought I remembered was not real. But the horrific, stuff still happened, but
there was horrific things that definitely happened. And I mean, again, I want to say to the audience, I've read a lot of these reports, and it's very stomach churning to read about some of the things Heidi's talking about. She's absolutely telling you the truth. I mean, there's official documents on all of this, and we do plan to get a documentary for her done when we can get it done. But it's really shocking stuff, and the fact that nobody was ever caught. I mean, this somebody went on to go, somebody who chews on babies and rapes children, 2.5, 3.5-year-old children. I mean, this was covered up in the Dalles, Oregon, and the officer that covered it up went on to be a very decorated, he was a very decorated person over in the Dalles. What was his name, Heidi?
His name was Darrell Hill.
Darrell Hill. So I'm sure you can just Google him, and it's just incredible that, this is the officer that made it so this kind of went away. And so Heidi can talk about that more.
His brother-in-law was the main suspect, and his name was Larry Joseph Hill. And that comes, you say, oh, brother-in-law, that couldn't have been related, but in his obituary, if you look it up online, in the Dalles, Oregon, Darrell Hill, his wife and him had the same last name when they got married. His wife's name is Dee Hill, which is still alive in the Dalles. And so Larry Hill, I went on to find other obituaries which tied him into his wife's family.
So that's really interesting because, obviously in Kadira's case, I mean, we have, Rex covering up for Todd, who, they're directly brothers. But, I mean, here you have, Heidi's case is very interesting because she's connected to a political family, and then of course, Kadira's case is connected to a political family, and the lengths that they've gone to cover this up, because Heidi basically spent the last from the age 27 to 43, or no 40, well, you just got it, 45.
Yeah, I got it when I was 40. Yeah, 4.
Yeah,
I'm
basically.
almost 45 now.
Yeah, so
it was 17 years I was searching.
Right. So you're 44, going to be 45.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know how it is. You get in your 40s and it's just like,
yeah,
who wants to zero in on that exact age?
Yeah.
But looking for that and being told all these years that nothing happened, because that's another similarity between Heidi's case and Kadira's case, is definitely we've been told for many, many years that nothing happened to Kadira, that it was just an accident. Well, at least I took a lot of online abuse, and just from people in my neighborhood and stuff like that, and from law enforcement, kind of labeling, just throwing that word accident around, so basically saying that it didn't happen, but in a different kind of way than how Heidi was being psychologically abused. But it's psychological abuse nonetheless. All of a sudden, these records exist, but they can't be found, and you need help now, but you can't get it because you can't even prove that you were the victim of this heinous crime. So I'm gonna give it back to you.
And the worst part of it is I was psychologically abused by not being able to get the counseling I needed for the last 17 years, and then all of a sudden they give me the records. So then it's like I got really mad. It made me really mad. Great, I got the records, but God, I could have got this help 17 years ago.
She got the records 6 months ago.
I got them 6 months ago, and the policeman who gave them to me appears to be very genuine. I won't even, it's just.
But now trying to look for representation to get help. You
Yeah.
can't really, you're not really getting the help you need still.
I got my victim's compensation approved. They approved it within 1 day of me sending them this report, because they felt obviously bad that I didn't get this help for 17 years. They knew I needed it, and I was denied because they couldn't get these records. It's just really, and so I have gotten some counseling since. I got some neurofeedback, which was a counseling that really I was hoping was going to be the magic bullet. It did help me in some ways, but I need a lot more counseling, so I'm in the middle of trying to find more counseling.
And maybe some accountability from the system, because right now,
they're not,
what's actually being done, so you have these records, this happened, but.
And I'll never get justice, because they told me they threw all the physical evidence away. So I never get, the people are all still alive and well and living their lives.
So, the babysitter.
The babysitter, the man who did this to us, they're alive. The cop that covered it up, he's dead. He died in 2014. But
he died with honors,
And he clearly covered this up. When they handed me this file, they handed me a damning, I guess I had my curiosity up about the corruption that was involved here, because I couldn't get these records, and that makes no sense. I couldn't get anybody to talk to me about it. And when you have something like this happen and you can't even get records, it shows that there must be something going on. Because the amount of denial and rejection I've experienced over trying to get them.
So you've talked to attorneys.
I've talked to the talk shows.
All kinds of officials.
I've talked to attorneys. Yeah. I talked to the presidents. Every president.
Just written everybody. Because I did similar things as well. I don't know if people really know that, but I was, writing talk shows and trying to get Kadira's case looked at. And
it's not because I wanted publicity.
No.
I wanted answers.
You think people should know about it?
I think people should know about it, yeah. And I had nobody to back me up. Try telling somebody a story about babies being chewed on and raped, and it covered up.
So a lot of people think you were crazy.
Everybody thought I was crazy.
And I totally have experienced the same thing as Heidi, even though everybody here in the neighborhood did know what happened to Kadira, and that, it wasn't a secret, still people like acted like I was saying crazy things. So I know exactly how you feel, because people look at you like, what? Because people don't want to believe that kind of stuff happens. So it's easier to think that you're crazy.
And it's hard for people to even hear the story. I mean, about this kind of stuff that happened to myself or Kadira. They don't want to hear. It's horrible to hear. They don't want to hear that. I've had a lot of people just say, stop there, I can't listen to anymore, before I got the records, and it's like, now I'm like, no, really, this happened. I finally have something to, I'm not crazy now. Now people are coming to me saying, I'm so sorry. And it's like, I'm already over all that. I had so many people say I was crazy or treat me like crap or say I was lying or making stuff up for excuses in life, that I just started to, I would say to people, when I get these records, because I will, because I was hell-bent on it, because of that response I got from people.
And it's crazy the way we met Heidi, because Heidi met my brother, and then she ended up seeing us protesting, and you can talk about that, Heidi, because it was interesting how we met.
It was. I believe in God. God's got a plan for everything, and I was fantasized because my mom will not talk to me about this at all. She's disowned me now. I've come to terms with the fact that she's probably scared for her life. There's nothing else that makes any sense. She told me last year, whenever I said I was going to go and protest for Carillon, when they said that she couldn't do that anymore and they charged her with crimes, I went out there. I wanted to do it for her. And I told my mom I was going to do that. And my mom was like, oh, why are you going to do that? And I said, it's for me.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I wouldn't try going to the Dalles and doing that because they're likely to kill you. So my mom is scared now still, and she has been the whole time. She talked to me the one time when I was 15 years old on the phone, and any time since, I'm mentally abusing her if I try to bring it up. And I had to come to terms. Why was my mom treating me that way? I had to come to terms with all these different realities. Like, what, was my mom a part of it? No, she wasn't a part of it. She was scared for her life, but I didn't know that. What am I supposed to think? I had all these things in my head. It's like, why am I being so... What? It was a lot to sort through.
It's scary to me as just like just a person living out here to think that, when this happened to you, that nobody who was involved with it, like, ever even was really investigated. Like, how did the babysitter sleep through this? How did this happen? How did it,
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary to think that there's a system in place to cover these things up, because, that's what I honestly believe happened in Kadira's case. So, and...
absolutely.
So, it's just interesting that we were able to meet each other, through not just my brother, but also the fact that we were out there doing the protesting at the time. So,
it was, God's got the perfect timing. I used to visualize my parents, when my mom would not talk to me about this and I couldn't get her help, and she told me I was being abusive for asking. I'm like, oh my God. I came to, I very passive aggressively said to her in a sweet, nice way, I am so sorry, Mom, that I made you, when I was 2.5 years old, leave me at that babysitter's house. And I am so sorry that you had to walk in and see bloody children. And I am so sorry that you had to go through that. And my mom said, okay, thank you. And she dropped it. And I knew right there, my mom is a weak person. For her to think that that's some sort of closure for me, I just let her have it. I didn't talk to her about it again. And that was a number of years back. That was in 2014.
I think that a lot of parents try to stuff this kind of stuff, and I think that kids suffer because of it, because I think about, not just what Kadira went through, but also what Sophie went through and how she never got any help. Nobody ever got any help in our situation, and nobody got any help in your situation. And seeing how you're even being treated now and how we're being treated, like, there's no apology. So, like, I guess one other thing I wanted you to talk about is just your experience, a little bit more about your experience trying to get the records and how you were treated and how you feel like the system failed you there, because I mean, we definitely feel that the system failed Kadira, and not only did the system fail, but people were really rude and nasty. I mean, I felt like they were basically saying, just go unalive yourself, as quickly as possible.
They want,
they don't want you to
they want you
even
to sit
make
there
it
in silence.
Yeah, they don't want you to make it. So that's
Yeah.
something more I wanted you to talk about.
I think that basically they were just waiting for me. They wanted me to kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
They figured I would.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, God, it's been a long time now. She should be dead by now. That's how they talked to me.
That's how I felt,
you're
too.
still alive? Oh my God.
Yeah, there's no, nobody, where's the compassion?
None.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because I think you and I have really found the same thing, is people are mean,
Mm-hmm.
and, that really extends to the legal community too, because just trying to get, legal help is.
Oh, it's
really,
like
it's like they've set the whole thing up, like they are
they
protecting these people.
They set the whole thing up to where it takes so long, and then all of a sudden they start saying, well, it's been so long ago.
Yeah, statute of limitations, or God, that was so long ago. That's what we hear.
Yeah, but they set it up that way.
But as a victim for you, it's happening every day.
It's happening to people all over the place.
But it's happening every day. Like you
life.
You wake up every day and you're still that 3.5-year-old that was raped, and you're dealing with the effects of that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's
then the re-traumatization and they victimize you by not understanding the effects of trauma,
by making you repeat yourself
over
and over.
Yeah, and then they think you're crazy because you're repeating yourself, and they make you look that way because either they're a part of it and they know how, or because they just don't understand the effects of trauma, and they need to. If you're in law enforcement, you need to be educated in a way that is to deal with victims. Law enforcement deals with victims every day. That's their job.
Yeah, and if you're treating somebody poorly, I mean, that can have really serious consequences, and for the person and for society, I think.
Oh, that's the problem in society right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, law enforcement, I mean, the lack of compassion, I mean, I am just gobsmacked by what I've experienced. I mean, people just telling us to go away, we don't matter, basically just go disappear. I can't even, I'm so shocked, and I'm at this point, I'm like, it would be better for law enforcement to stop behaving this way, because it's just like, how...
It would be better if they understood why they needed to stop, and that's by education.
Yes.
That's by the education, not by the people who are educating them now. They're dumping gobs of money in there, the district attorney said, for that. They don't have the appropriate information to be...
Because they're ignoring the victims.
Yeah.
They're ignoring people like us. They're ignoring Heidi. And you can sit there and tell them, hey, this happened. And in Heidi's case, show them the paperwork. And even now in Kadira's case, because now we do have her medical records from OHSU and Emmanuel, so we know a lot more about the medical neglect. And it's like, the police don't want to go after this because of, essentially something we did, which we didn't do anything. And Heidi, you were 3.5. I mean, Kadira was 8 years old when she was burned. I mean, the victims in this case, I mean, what did they do to be being treated that way? I mean, you were treated that way from the outset. I mean, they covered up what happened to you. Nobody got arrested, even the babysitter. I mean, come on, I slept through it.
Yeah.
Come on, I think she knows a little bit more. And I mean, there is a lot more to your case, which is why we do want to do a documentary on it. But I mean, today I just wanted to give people a general overview of...
Which is, it's so much. There's so much in both cases, Kadira's case and my case, that it's really overwhelming, and I don't want to overwhelm people to where they're just they shut off.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just absolutely unacceptable for people in this day and age with all this technology and all these modern
educational tools, modern educational tools.
So cavemanish towards victims, which there's just a certain fraction of people in the world that are victims. But I'll tell you what, people that are victimized like this, have a huge wave that affects, because it's huge. I mean, you got people doing school shootings, you got people doing all these things. Not that I would go out and do that, but
no. And the things that you've talked about that happened to you as a
child. Society
is
seeping with unresolved issues,
traumas
that would be the only driving force to those kind of outcomes.
And you have to think about,
people not being heard.
Yeah, but I also think about, like, this person who covered this up. I mean, what else did they cover up?
Oh, yeah, and that's another reason I want to talk about this, is because this is not a one-time thing. It can't be. So I want other people who are victims to find me. That'd be great, or Carillon, and become part of this force. Not like I want to be like the forefront of their adventure, or their I want them to get a voice.
Yeah, more people to come forward and talk about, like, if something like this has happened to you. I mean, that's why I want to start.
Because it happens all the time. And there's just, I got obsessive compulsive tendencies, and I won't stop. But a lot of people do stop. And whenever I went out there to talk for Carillon, because they had indicted her, they put a stop to it immediately. And then the very next one, I went out there with duct tape over my mouth, because I felt like that's what they wanted. They want me to sit there, and they didn't know my story. And it really was mentally affected me when they came and did that day, because I was a victim, and here I'm trying to stand up for them. It was just a huge deal. And so the duct tape over the mouth thing, that's exactly what society wants.
Yeah, I know, and it's really weird to have that happen, here. I mean, in Multnomah Village. I mean, I was born and raised in Portland. I mean, I've lived in this area essentially since I was 3 years old. And so, like, to feel like, that my neighbors are telling me to be quiet, and that's not to say all of my neighbors. I do have some really nice neighbors that have been there for us as much as they could be. But then I've also really experienced, I feel like it's not just racism in Kadira's case, but I think that is a huge factor. But of course, Heidi is white, so, which, it's not like the listener can see that, but she is connected to a political family, and her case was, very much shut down in the same way that Kadira's case was shut down. So, to feel like your own family, kind of maybe put you in that situation, or
just left me in it,
or left you in it, or because they didn't want to go after it because of all the political connections. I mean, that's too bad, you know what I'm saying? And it's still going on to this day, because of course, I mean, you still need, some sort of justice, some sort of compensation, some sort of something. I mean, not that anything can ever make up for this, because the suffering will always be there, you know what I'm saying? To have something, so horrific happen to a small child. And I've seen how Kadira's been dismissed, and I've seen how you've been dismissed, and it is really, really, really horrifying. So
it's really heartbreaking watching Kadira approach that age, and she's starting to. Yeah. It's just really a hard road, and I am really glad that most people don't understand that road that a victim goes down after being victimized as a child. It's not anything that you can explain in a way that people would really be able to grasp.
And especially, when, it's one thing for somebody who gets, the right kind of help right away, but for somebody who just gets completely dismissed and told to go away, even Heidi with her records, it's not like there's some big, apology from the police department and, we're going to help you. And, there's no compassion at all. No. And that is my thing to law enforcement. Like, you need to learn to be more compassionate. I mean, the behavior that I have witnessed is just so jaw-droppingly below the bar.
Yeah.
And I don't want to think that way about law enforcement, because I want law enforcement to be better. I really do.
They can be. They need the information. They need to be aware. They're taught all these things. They go to workshops all the time. These things aren't being told to them. Mm-hmm. So they're going off the information they have. And I really feel sorry for the tipping point when they realize, because it's always emotional when you realize that you made a huge mistake and you impacted people in a negative way, and you could have controlled that if you would have just opened your ears and hearts. And that's coming. It's coming, and it's going to be a a really good moment for change, but it's going to be really tough for society, and the relationship between society and the police is already on the rocks. And that's not being addressed yet, but it's because of stuff like this. It's because of the way that it's a disconnect, and that bridge is coming, and it's going to happen soon.
I mean, all parties essentially have to come to the table, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think something both you and I want is to, like, sit down and have that conversation with law enforcement.
Like, we're not just less than, well, we're having the conversation, you know.
Like, acknowledge me, acknowledge these records, acknowledge that I'm in the room.
Yeah.
And don't pretend that, you know, my case doesn't matter or what happened to me doesn't matter, because,
or that it's not widespread.
Right. And Heidi, I mean, at 45 years old, you know, as a survivor, because I do consider you a survivor, I consider Kadira a survivor, I mean, and I think that there are a lot of survivors.
Yeah.
You know, because I think about just all these years fighting for Kadira, and, you know, I don't think that people appreciate enough that we made it this far. And, I mean, of course, I know you a lot more intimately than, you know, the listener, but, I mean, I know that you've really made it a long way, and it's really a miracle that you survived to even, you know, be here to tell your story. So, I mean, this kind of stuff, you know, I think it really does kill a lot of people, actually. You know what I'm saying? Quite frankly, in the sense that, I mean, why when you just don't feel like you matter at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that feeling.
But I was raised, thank God I had Lucille Wires in my life, my great-grandma, because she taught me that I matter. She taught me that I mattered. And I guess, you know, so my whole life I'm being treated like I don't matter, but thank God I had those first years with her, because she taught, and it didn't make sense to me. Why don't I matter? Why am I not important?
You had a voice in you telling you that you mattered.
She was that voice, because my parents, we lived on her property, and I was raised by her until I was 5, and she's a really strong political figure. When women didn't have a voice, she had a voice. I mean, if you look her up, Lucille Wires, you'll see political accomplishments that she made that weren't made by women then. So she's a very strong woman. So she's why I am strong.
What would she say to you?
She just taught me to be a strong woman. I mean, I would go door to door with her. She wanted something done, she'd do it. She'd go door to door, grassroots, the blue ribbon, Democrat, you know. She'd go door to door, pounding, go to the fairs, and she'd be handing out flyers, you know, all grassroots, pounding feet to get this stuff done, you know, but she would do it. And
so you got to see that.
Yeah. In the 5th grade, we had a teacher that was really mean to us, right? And my whole political family, they were all Democrats. I'm not real hip on the Democrat-Republican thing as an adult, because I can see how corrupt it's gotten. My grandma would be rolling over in her grave. But
probably is.
Yeah, she probably is. But, so whenever I was in the 5th grade, I wasn't a popular kid because I had issues, but I had enough political sense that if there's something going on that we don't like, we outnumber the teachers, so we're like the voters. And so I got a petition. I was in the 5th grade. I got a petition wrote up, and we got picket signs we all made under my direction. We're going to address it democratically, I said to my classmates. And this is a class of, you know, 30 kids. I'm not popular, but I knew what to do. And so we all signed this petition to have this student teacher out of our classroom, because she was really mean to kids. She really was. And we went out on class time and picketed in a line down to the office, and I was in the front. It was just weirdest thing, but this is what my grandma would have done. And so I handed it to the principal. I said, we're trying to handle this democratically, I said. And, well, they told us to go back to class and treated us like little kids. Yeah. And so I figured, well, heck, the democratic way didn't work, so I pissed her off to where she slapped me. Oh. And she could never be a teacher. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But, you know, it's like, oh, if this democratic stuff's not going to work, well, I guess I could be a little kid.
That's funny.
But, you know, so my great-grandma had an impact on me. I ran for school president in the 4th grade because I wanted to impress my great-grandma, because my uncle Jan Wires, he was the school president at Dartmouth, or at his high school. He was he was voted school president. And so she would always talk about him. He was her favorite child, and it was my great grandma, and I wanted to be equal to him, so I was really looked up to him, and because my grandma talked highly of him, and so I ran for school president in the 6th grade. I figured maybe that would impress her that I did it younger. Yeah. But so my grandma had a huge impact on me.
That's good. So you had something to hang on to. And I know that you're very much into your Bible. You know a lot about the Bible.
My great grandma put that in me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heidi could just, sometimes when I talk to her about that, she just, I'm surprised at how you just come up with like so much information just off the top of your head.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't have a photographic memory like that, so that's what it feels. Well, that's what it feels like sometimes when you talk about like different Bible verses and how they've affected you and stuff like that.
That's what I've always turned to whenever I get really down. I just open the Bible up, and it's always got something to do with what I'm going through, and so.
I mean, I think people have to find what works, and obviously you found something because you're still here. So
there's got to be a God. I'm telling you, if there wasn't, trust me, I would not be here.
Wow. So I'm glad that you've had something to hang on to, and I feel very much the same way in our struggle. So But okay, I guess we will end it with that, unless there's anything else you can think of you want to say.
I just want to say that if there's anybody out there who hears anything that they can familiar or relate to, you're not alone. I was alone for a long time, I thought. Don't ever give in and take your own life in those down times, because that's letting them win. And you're worth more than that. If you need a friend, look me up. I'm on Facebook. Just shout out. You don't even have to identify yourself, just say, hey, I'm going through a hard time, and I'll know what you're talking about.
So, and what do you want to see happen with your case?
I want to see change. They could offer me $2 billion right now to just be quiet, and I would not take it. My whole life has been a waste if I just was silent about this. The only thing I can make out of my life to be any progress in my mind is to see change.
Change for victims.
Change for victims in the future, and change for society, and how we need to incorporate victim awareness, the effects of trauma. We should know as a society how to address that on a daily level. It shouldn't be a big surprise when somebody is experiencing the effects of trauma, which may not look like what the textbook says it should. It's very different.
Although I would say in your case, like your parents didn't really have the tools, because we were left without the tools.
My parents didn't have the tools.
We were left without the tools in Kadira's case.
Yeah, my parents didn't have the tools. My mom had a political family. Nothing was done. She was terrified, because her family is terrifying. I mean, they could be, if, as far as people who are political have power. And she felt like, well, if my family couldn't do anything about it, then I better be quiet. And so she's been terrified for years, and I didn't understand that, and I personalized that. So it's just a big wave. And then I've affected a lot of people in my life. I mean, I've had some pretty severe breakdowns people didn't understand, and that affected their life at times. And I don't ever want anybody to hear the reality of what happened to me in a way that they believe it now and feel bad, because I don't blame them for not understanding, because society has set us up for this. And I want to be part of what changes that. I want to be a part of that with other victims to change that. So that's all.
Heidi, well, thank you for sharing your story, and we look forward to doing a documentary with you. I'm not sure when we'll get that done, but I'm excited to do it. So
I'm excited to be a part of your path too. I love you guys.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Okay. Bye, everybody.